What if I told you there exists a game with Studio Ghibli aesthetics that's not Ni no Kuni? Hard to believe, right? Well, I got good news and bad news for you. The good news is, yes, there exists such a game that has a nearly one-to-one art direction in the vein of Ghibli films, like Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind and Princess Mononoke. The bad news is that this game is old, like 1999 old. Yeah. If you're a fan of nostalgia, then this video will be perfect for you. I am talking about a relatively small unknown game called Jade Cocoon, developed by Japanese video game developer Genki. Prior to the release of Jade Cocoon, Genki was known for creating a series of arcade racing simulators known as the Tokyo Extreme Racer arcade games, with its first installment, Shutoko Battle 94 Drift King in 1994. So when you see a game that is completely out of their niche, this would raise some questions from their main core audience. Now, you're probably asking yourself the main question: how the hell does this game look like a Ghibli film? Well, that is mainly because of this man, Katsuya Kondō. He is a Japanese manga artist, character designer, animator, and animation director that is best known for his work on Studio Ghibli films such as Kiki's Delivery Service, Ponyo, Ronja, The Robber's Daughter, and Ocean Waves. So much influence on these past films had an impact on Jade Cocoon's character designs and setting. I want to delve what made this game so groundbreaking at the time. Picture this, it's 1998. Voice acting in video games around this time was rare. Any kind of voice acting was small, bare bones, and nearly non-existent. Every JRPG during these years was text only. Now, you grab this game off the shelf and learn that nearly every line of dialogue was fully voiced.
After all, you are the son of a cocoon master. That's the way it is.
But your father might still be alive out there somewhere, so he won't need our welcome.
Without the power to summon a magic beast, you are no threat to me!
Soon you will enter the forest as a cocoon master.
Crazy, right? And I know voice acting in video games does not get taken seriously and always has some sort of flack.
That was too close. You were almost a Jill sandwich.
But to have every character voiced with their performances nearly on par with fully fledged anime was so impressive. The technicality back then was very limiting. I distinctly remember when Final Fantasy X was announced and it had fully casted voice acting. I was nearly mind blown as a kid playing that game, and everyone was just straight up talking. Gameplay wise, this game really was ahead of its time. To sum it up in a sentence, think of Pokemon meets Persona. The majority of Jade Cocoon's core mechanics include elemental weaknesses via a 4-element system, basically a rock paper scissors mechanic, so to speak, as well as having to capture your monsters by first bringing them to critical health. The one difference is that our character can fight monsters directly instead of relying solely on his captured creatures. But your monster stats scale much more than you do, so the protagonist fighting is only good for early game. Catching and summoning minions is done through playing music. Levant, the protagonist's default name, does it by playing an ocarina-like flute. Now, the real spotlight mechanic is easily the merging mechanic. With Persona, you fuse monsters to create new monsters, right? We've seen it time and time again in their games. Take Persona X and fuse it with Persona Y to get Persona Z, and then take Persona Z and combine it with Persona A to get Persona B, and you get the idea. It's a clever way to incentivize you to recapture personas to complete the compendium, and it allows for almost unlimited replayability because you also get to pass down moves as well. Okay, so let's take what we know about Persona, fusions leading to entirely new personas. Jade Cocoon takes the same exact premise, but what if the end result's monster's appearance was based on the first two? The resulting minion's body shape and color scheme will be blends of its parents, with the shape primarily of the first parent and the colors primarily of the second. This feature is surprisingly deep and fun to experiment with. This was one of the biggest strengths and what made this whole system entirely unique. In a nutshell, Monster 1 would be the base appearance, while Monster 2 would be the coloring. To this day, I don't recall any other type of game that does this. If you know a game, please leave it in the comments. Passing down moves, elements, based appearances, and color schemes, this is just straight up awesome. Battles operate in an overworld with pre-rendered backdrops. Games released around this time all had one thing in common: random encounters. But Jade Cocoon basically said, nope, not this time, and threw in these monsters into the map. You can see enemies wandering the fields from multiple screens away at times. The behavior of these creatures vary. Some will actively go out of their way to attack you, while some just try to run away. If you're a god at tank controls, you can easily juke and void probably 90% of the encounters truly. And yep, hand controls. Think of old school Resident Evil. You either hate it or love it. No, you hate it. It's where pushing up means you always move in the direction your character is facing, while pushing the left and right arrows make your character rotate. Onto the story. The game's main plot is nothing you haven't experienced before. You play a silent protagonist, Levant, who is a cocoon master and the chosen one, destined to save his town from an evil curse. I won't spoil everything, but know that there's a sleep sickness that occurs very early into the game, and that you're the village's only chance to cure the sleep sickness, and to prevent the village from being swallowed up by the forest. So if I'm the village's only hope for survival, then why am I still paying for equipment and supplies? The soundtrack I actually found to be rather well composed, sticking to a more tribal theme that really suited the game's atmosphere, setting, and art direction. It's genuinely a magical soundtrack that is enchanting and captivating. My favorite track is easily the Cyrus Village theme that often gets stuck in my head. There's actually multiple versions of this song. The battle theme is also a banger. If you have the time, I definitely recommend checking out Jade Cocoon. It's an underrated, forgotten relic of the past that never gets talked about, that helped define the PS1 era. People describing it as yet another Pokemon clone are really underselling its potential and the amount of heart the developers put into making this little amazing game. If you crave endless beast merging, a killer soundtrack, late 90s RPG vibes, and most importantly of all, Ghibli aesthetics, then give the game a shot. I know there are so many folks that played this game on demo discs. Yeah, remember those? And only got to experience the first hour or so into the game. There's a lot to unpack here, and Jade Cocoon is honestly the Miyazaki film we never got.